Approximately 50,000 years ago, in a heavily unpopulated area, Cape York, Greenland, inhabited by mostly Inuits at the time, a famous meteorite crashed, and with it came a virus which is the key to evolution. This disease went unknown until 1978, when a group of surveyors were surveying the meteorite crash site, and two of them cut themselves during the surveying. They both contracted a horrible disease that grossly mutated their bodies, but one of them, before passing away, shot a bolt of lightning from his fingertips, destroying the hands of the doctor who was operating on him. It was later discovered that some time ago, hundreds of years possibly, one of the native tribemen, one of the Inuits, stole pieces of the meteorite and forged them into arrows. He ran away to Egypt, and those arrows were lost to time until in 1986, where a man, a 19-year-old boy, who would one day go on to do great things, helped discover the arrows in Egypt. His name and background were all faked, and the next day, the youth and the 6 arrows disappeared. This is the origin of the stand arrow, or the arrows, should I say, because there are 6 stand arrows, but this is also the origin of the most important of the 6, the Requiem arrow. There are a lot of things that confuse JoJo fans, and one of those things is stand arrows and Requiem stands. A lot of people assume that you can stab a stand with a regular stand arrow and achieve a Requiem stand, which isn't true. I should get that out of the way right now. Kira, specifically, he doesn't even stab Killer Queen. He stabs himself, or the arrow stabs him. But the arrow that stabs him is a regular stand arrow, and it is not the Requiem arrow. You notice the difference between the Requiem arrow and the regular stand arrows because the Requiem arrow has a scarab beetle on it. Another main difference between a Requiem arrow and a regular stand arrow is the stand arrow brings out abilities, where the Requiem arrow gives you situational abilities, and they are evolutions of your stand permanently. You don't keep your regular stand ability. Some people forget that stands evolve their power to meet specific situations. You have Star Platinum evolving Time Stop, or gathering Star Finger with ridiculous things like that, or Koichi himself with his evolution of Echoes. Or you could bring up Tusk, but I don't count Tusk in this equation because he's not from the same universe. Or hell, you can bring up the biggest evolution stand of them all, Made in Heaven, where Made in Heaven started as Whitesnake, became Sea Moon, and then became Made in Heaven. If that isn't proof enough that stands evolve to meet situations, then I don't know what will convince you. But what I am forwarding is the idea that stand arrows can force that evolution on, where a Requiem arrow, a more potent virus, will full-on evolve your stand. Now, to try to prove this, let's take a look at the cases in which an arrow has pierced a stand, and in which an arrow has pierced a person who already had a stand. The only one that we have of an arrow piercing a person who already has a stand is Kira. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think Bites the Dust is a Requiem stand. I think it's the next step in Kira's evolution as a stand user, and I think it fits not only just the situation. It wasn't a situational stand. A situational stand I feel would have been much different, and Killer Queen would have changed completely. But moving on to stands hit with the Requiem arrow, actually let's stop, because there is one that a lot of people like to ignore when we talk about this, and was a huge roadblock for me when I was originally writing this, and that's Papio, however you say his fucking fat ass name, and his stand, Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath has one of the stand arrows inside of it, and he does stab Giorno's gold experience with it. Now, given what happens in JoJo when Giorno stabs gold experience with the Requiem arrow, if a normal stand arrow had the same effect as a Requiem stand arrow, gold experience Requiem should have happened. There could be cases where people say, well, you have to stab yourself, you have to actively, willingly accept it, but that goes against how the stand arrows have been working in the past, where the arrow has been forced onto them. So I think it's safe to say that the Requiem arrow works different than a regular stand arrow. Speaking of the Requiem arrow, how about stands that were pierced with the Requiem arrow? You have Silver Chariot Requiem, and you have Gold Experience Requiem. Those are the only 2 Requiem stands in JoJo. Silver Chariot Requiem is a weird case. Polnareff pricks his finger trying to grab the Requiem arrow in the past, and creates Silver Chariot Requiem. It has the Soul Swap manipulation ability, and that sounds weird, because, as I mentioned, they're situational. They do what you want at that specific situation, and I've said before that Silver Chariot Requiem's situational thing was to get the stand arrow away from Diavolo. I am not technically wrong. During that moment when Polnareff pricks his finger and creates Silver Chariot Requiem's soul swap ability, he does it because he doesn't have a functional body anymore. Probably going through his head was he wanted a functional body. And soul swap swaps you with the closest living thing near you, and that would have put Polnareff in possibly a functioning body, achieving the goal he wanted. He takes the arrow from Silver Chariot Requiem and changes it back to regular Silver Chariot. Now, the reason I think this works is because when Polnareff does that again, when they remove the arrow from Silver Chariot Requiem and it dies and doesn't go back to Polnareff as Silver Chariot, I think that's because at that time Polnareff had now gained a new stand, Mr. President, because he took the body of the turtle. Then you have Giorno and his Gold Experience Requiem, which his ability is to reduce anything to 0, a perfect counter to Diavolo's ability to erase time, because he can reduce the erasing to 0. It's really complicated and stupid. It's basically just a win ability, but Giorno gains it because he needs the ability to defeat Diavolo. He knows that without an evolution, through the forced evolution of the Requiem stand arrow, he knows that he needs to evolve his stand to defeat Diavolo, because Diavolo at that moment has probably the most powerful power amongst the group. The ability to erase time with his short range and his immense strength. Giorno needed something that was perfect, and he got it, because the Requiem arrow works like that. Another sign that it is stand evolution is, if you notice, the two stands pierced with the Requiem arrow that fully evolve and become different beings almost. Honestly, they become their own sentient life forms, but they both shed their old appearances. Giorno's cracks and falls apart, and Silver Chariot's kind of melts. It's almost like they're hatching from a cocoon. They're evolving. They're becoming something completely different. The only other time we've seen an arrow pierce a stand, all it's done is either damage the stand with Poplio and his Black Sabbath, or with Kira and Bites the Dust, where Kira gained an ability that improved him, but Killer Queen itself did not change at all. Thank you for watching. Let's have a discussion in the comment section. Do you guys still think that the regular stand arrows, even though they're designed specifically different and they all look the same, even though the Requiem arrow has a different design, that they still function the same? Because I have trouble believing that. If you like this video, please leave a like, and have a lovely day. Also, don't forget to pre-order Shimonetta, A Boring World Where the Concept of Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist, coming out November 29th on Funimation.com/Shimonetta. Pre-order now and get fucking nothing, because I'm not being paid to do this. Just go do it for me, please.